Hey, welcome to the People's Weekly. 25 minutes late. We're better than usual. Usually we're like 10 or 12 minutes late. We don't have the intro song today, so I'm sorry. Glenn's going to go ahead and sing the Canadian national anthem for us because they're weak and dishonest people.
Fake news.
Fake news. So yeah, we started the show almost on time, like regular, and then I couldn't hear anybody, and the track wasn't picking anything up, so everything went crazy, and now it's fixed. Yay!
Fixed.
Yeah. So how are you guys today? Oh, we're here. We're here
Um,
with Canadian Glenn and Fallen Kitty.
and who is also Canadian.
Oh no.
Uh, but no, but yeah, you're totally spot on about Canada's like latest reconciliation, you know, initiative, whatever that means. It's fallen apart, and the whole pipeline passed, and all that fun stuff is happening.
Yeah. Canada sucks too. It just sucks less.
Yeah, and I don't. It might suck more as time goes on, just based with all like that's been happening regarding the tariffs and everything. And I'm not sure if you guys have followed the news about that whole thing at Laurier that's happening with that teaching assistant, or I guess former teaching assistant. I don't know if she still works there, but the whole alt right Nazi darling of quote unquote free speech is actually suing the university for $3.4 million.
Yeah, because she's an idiot, and now she says nobody will hire her. Well, I suggest don't be an idiot.
And also, it's impossible to. It's not. I guess it's not impossible, but I mean, it's unrealistic to say that you're unemployable when you've only got a master's. Because, like, academic, unless you're a prodigy or something, and I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she thought she was a prodigy, but unless you're actually a prodigy or something, like, you shouldn't be getting jobs or, like, professional prospects or anything when you have a master's. Like, if she was getting a PhD or a postdoc or something, that'd be a different story, but there's not really much or anything aside from an intro course kind of job in Canada that you can get with a master's.
Well, I don't think Lindsay Shepherd's entire plan is really based on empirical evidence or logic. It's just, I have massive butt hurt, give me monies.
Yeah, and also she's like, I mean, this could also even go further and say that, like, perhaps this was, like, kind of the goal all along, because, like, she's just been doing terrible things, like, and it was ridiculous for the university to even kind of issue that apology and kind of sell out the other professors who, like, opposed it. But I was kind of ranting about on Twitter earlier about how, like, maybe this was Laurier's plan all along, because they wanted to appeal to, like, the right demographic as opposed to, like, other demographics, because they saw how lucrative it was in terms of, like, Jordan Peterson and Rick Mehta and all those other figures who were, like, making headlines. And with the whole Lindsay Shepherd thing, she brought a lot of press to Laurier, and perhaps other alt-right or kind of idealistic, willfully obtuse students who believe that kind of thinking will now be inclined to attend Laurier and pay them money. So, I don't know, maybe it was just like some huge marketing scam where they, like, deliberately, like, indulged her. And I mean, I don't really care about Lindsay Shepherd, but that's just, like, I just wouldn't put it past, like, the university, because universities are just crafty.
Well, I don't think there was any master plan from anybody, and that's how we ended up in this mess.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, she's also, like, known for saying inflammatory stuff, and I mean, her whole presence on social media and everything she's done since leaking that interview to the press seems like it's just this giant vanity project where, like, she just wants like attention, and like I don't like, and just based off of Jordan Peterson's model, like he gets like what was it, like $16,000 a month based off of his Patreon subscribers alone. So I don't know if maybe that was what she was hoping to do as well, because like again, the market for that kind of stuff is apparently lucrative, like just based off of him and other figures in the right, like, and it's just sad to kind of see how everything's just kind of falling, and how these groups are being afforded legitimacy under the guise of quote unquote free speech. And it's just so obviously not about free speech, but the media is entertaining it as like a viable kind of view. So yeah, it's just, I just, it's like nobody's learning anything.
Yeah, me and Glenn, we did a show. Like other people were on it too, but I remember Glenn was on it. We were talking about an anti-Trump rally I was at. There was a lot of people, and there were a few Trump supporters there, and the media just rushed them. I mean, they were doing like photo ops. They'd have girls pull up in cars and whole thing, and like everyone in the media. No one was talking to the anarchists. No one was talking to the communists. No one was talking to the socialists. No one was talking to the other, a couple of the other protesters. They talked to them real quick, but wherever the Trump people were, the fascists, they were all on it. Every camera on them. It was like ridiculous. Yeah, the media, at least here in the United States, really 3,000% kind of pushes that. Well, talking bad about it, they make sure all the voices are heard from the Nazi alt-right fascist Trump loving side of things.
Yeah, like I don't know if this is just I guess kind of something that can just be positively correlated exclusively to Trump, but like it just seems that after the whole election, everyone has just been emboldened to like shout these views and think that there won't be any consequences. And like, I mean, before, I'm not gonna say like these people were thinking this stuff prior, they weren't thinking it prior. I'm not saying that. It's just they weren't screaming so loudly about it before, and I just find it odd that like they do this and they're actually doing it as if nothing is wrong.
The motivation is the same it's always been. Just like you talked about the rally you went to, Tim, the reason the media flocks to these idiots is because that is the viewpoint that is making them money currently. That's all that matters.
Yeah, like I never understood that either, because like I thought like just with how much like the alternative is kind of on the rise, I thought they would try and monetize that, because when you look at like Pride and everything, the corporations are like all over trying to get involved in that and get a piece of that and monetize whatever they can in terms of that and merchandise. But so yeah, I just don't understand like why they would decide to monetize that side as opposed to like the other side, which appeared to be like on the rise and like kind of liberating and stuff. But yeah,
they kind of did. I mean, they monetized a lot of the people who will take corporate money, like Young Turks or whoever else, But a lot of people way on the left, they're not willing to take corporate money because they're fighting the corporations, and the corporations aren't going to give them money. None of these businesses are going to give you money to say, fuck, I'm going to take money and have a Walmart ad, and I'm going to be screaming, fuck Walmart. You know what I mean? I think if you go too far left, they don't want to have anything to do with you. The right wing takes money, but nobody wants to deal with Nazis.
Left, right are just brands. They're brands. That's all they are. Mass media would sell you cat shit in a bag if it made them money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is. And the way they determine what they cover is by how much money comes in. That's it. And as far as online goes, that's basically an algorithmic calculation now. So that's why they're getting louder and they're getting bolder. It's because somebody's making money off them somewhere on the chain, and they're not being wiped out. There's money in it. When people move away from them, which likely will happen again, just like it's always happened, then you won't hear about them anymore. If they don't make money, nobody's going to carry them.
Yeah, but I mean, I think with this president we have in particular, that's kind of his goal. He loves the television. He loves the media. He's more Hollywood than Reagan. You know, he wants to be in the
Yeah, like a
spotlight.
lot of like, did things kind of just go downhill since Reagan?
Yes, that's what happened.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. But I mean, how is this really any different than powdered cocaine was the drug and then crack came along? Well, everybody went to crack. And then meth came along. Everybody went to meth. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like I was. This makes me think about. I was actually watching this series on Netflix, and then I was doing an article on it. And it got me looking into all this stuff regarding existentialism and time travel and quantum physics, and like essentially the whole premise of it is that even if you have time travel or whatever theories there are, the world is just kind of fated to repeat itself like over and over again. Like the same stuff will happen over and over again, even though people just kind of vow to like assume a different stance, which is easy to say in hindsight or like I guess hopeful foresight, but like it just always happens over and over again, and people just make the same mistakes and fall for the same stuff, even despite like the differences in time, because like certain products and quote unquote I guess evils manifest in different forms as time goes forward. So like the old stuff can resurface in the new, and or I mean if you want to get like deeper, it's not old and new, it's just the same stuff resurfacing over and over, and like it's like nobody learns the lesson, or I guess the masses don't learn the lesson, or I mean the people in power who like I guess are responsible for giving information and selling things and controlling the means of the masses. They can't discern things, or they just push for certain things, and it's I don't know, it just inclines me to be a bit nihilistic just with how things are, because it's just like it's like you overcome one thing and then it just happens again, and like people are just making the same mistakes over again. And yeah, Nolan kind of knows this about me too, because like I have the same kind of hang up when it comes to celebrities, because celebrities are given all of the social and material capital by like the masses and corporations, and they're like reified as like these spectacular, extraordinary individuals, and that's often not the case, but people just kind of see that because they impose their ideologies on these figures. And it's just, and then they do something that kind of just proves all along that they're not extraordinary, and people are all shocked and surprised or whatever. But and it's just like it's like it just goes on, and yeah, like that's just it's just very interesting to see how things go on and repeat themselves.
And the common factor in all that is human beings. We are not evolving, so nothing ain't going to change.
Celebrities are just broke motherfuckers with money. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. They're just people. And people, for the most part, are weak. Obviously. People don't want to learn. The problem I see with what's going on today, which I ranted about on Wednesday, is, basically, fuck your feels. Think with your fucking brain for once. But that's too hard.
Yeah. And I also think, because you talk to some of these people, or at least in this country, I mean, I know Canadians are geniuses, supposedly. They're weak, dishonest geniuses. But anyway, in this country, I've heard this many times from a lot of people, usually the more right-wing kind of people. But, you'll say, because I've been saying this for years, I've been saying this under Bush and Obama, we headed toward fascism. As soon as I hear fascism, the first thing I say is, oh, you see gas chambers? Where are the gas chambers? Where is this? They equate it to everything in the past. They don't realize that things evolve. We have new technology. You can slaughter people and lock them up and do different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same as previous genocides. You know
Well,
what I
I
mean?
think
There were no gas chambers in the NATO genocide. There were no gas chambers in the Armenian genocide. There were no gas chambers in a lot of genocide, but one famous genocide. So they say, oh, well, if it comes again, there's got to be gas chambers. It's got to be this. It's going to be all different.
And there were like, more devastating. Well, not like it's a competition, but there are genocides that had like huger reaches, but beyond the Holocaust. Like,
The NATO genocide is close to 100 million.
yeah, and there was also the whole reign of what's happening right now in. Well, it's not happening as in big of a scale, but the corrupt political party in Indonesia, and there was also Pol Pot, which was back in the early 90s,
Yeah.
and then all of these other people who, and it's like none of it involved gas chambers, so it's like, but also you have to think about it's the people who are being like wiped out, like I don't know, like in because people associate Jewish people primarily with white people,
They are white
and like they
people.
don't well, there are some people of color who are Jewish, like they
Yeah, I mean, but
identify
it's
as
a
Jewish.
religion. It's like there's people of different races that are Christian, and but Polish people are white people, and that you know what I
Yeah.
mean. If Jewish people are Eastern European basically with a religion.
Well, yeah, and like the Holocaust predominantly affected like white Jewish people, so I guess that's why it remains so, I guess, exemplary in popular imagination, which is why people just associate that foremost with the genocide
Yeah,
and like the
what other
means that happened.
genocide? What other genocide gets their own nation tossed on a bunch of dark people? You know what I mean? Here, create your own genocide over here because we wronged you. I don't remember that from any other atrocity in history.
Yeah, and
Tangent
there's
City.
Oh yeah,
uh,
we go on tangents on this show all the time, and Glenn brings us back. What were we on now? We were on Canada, right?
Yeah.
We haven't started number one.
I thought we talked about the dishonest Canadians.
That's as much as you said.
Oh,
But, like it says, he wants to pick a fight with Canada and Justin Trudeau. I'm not going to give my personal opinion of the current Prime Minister, but international polling puts him at the top or very close to it for a leader that so-called Western democracies think would be just fine. So according to the man baby, Trudeau can't be trusted, but he has no problem with Putin, Erdogan, Duarte, and now Kim Jong-un. So
I mean, I believe that he'll have problems with Kim Jong Un in like 5 minutes. Like he's just so volatile. Like but
no, he's never had
For-
an issue. He's never had an issue with the ruthless dictator. Never.
yeah,
Never.
he
He
likes
hails him.
he likes authoritarians.
yeah, and like I think I also read another article, and I honestly don't think it's happening in a large scale enough to like provide much of an impact. But there's an article I read earlier that talked about how Canadians were starting to express this sentiment on social media and stuff, where they were boycotting American products and like rescheduling their vacations to elsewhere in the world or in Canada as opposed to America. And there's like some hashtag, I think it's like boycott USA or something, and it was just in response to Trump's remarks or something. But
Yeah,
it's just
didn't Trudeau's numbers go up after Trump went off on him? Like his approval rating went higher.
I mean,
Well-
like, what does that number like matter in the long run? Like, I mean, like, can anything kind of come out of that?
Well, it would show
Money.
it would show more
Money.
Canadians don't like authoritarian dicks like Trump. Maybe.
Everything is skewed to money. His ratings go up, his party gets more donations. his rating goes up, more lobbyists want to meet with him and spread it around. Everything is based on money, and this is why we are in this position. The reason that Trump is so fond of authoritarians is because they control the money in their nations. We've seen it in Turkey how many times? Somebody pisses Erdogan off, complete newspaper chains get shut down, all their assets get seized. What do you think happens to those assets? You think they're going into public service programs for the Turkish people? Somehow I doubt it.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Trump likes these guys. They get away with what he's trying to do behind the curtain right now.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, in the context of the tariffs and stuff he was going to do, like, I was just wondering, like, would that substantially kind of hurt Canada in the long run as opposed to America in the long run?
Well, part of the problem is Trump just has no idea how anything works outside of his office and his TV. So, I mean, this 25% steel, 10% aluminum on Canada. Guess where the U.S. imports most of its steel and aluminum from to build automobiles and military projects? Canada. So he just basically put an added cost on most of the things that get a lot of their money from the taxpayers anyway. So a trade war does nothing except increase the cost of living for your own citizens.
I mean, and he doesn't even care about that because, I mean, he can afford any increase.
Well, especially when you can just steal whatever you want, yeah.
Yeah, I was just, like, wondering in terms of the citizens and stuff, like, because it just seems like kind of counterproductive, or I guess reductive overall, because, I mean, if that's going to, like, cause this much problems, and, like, Trudeau is ending up looking like the quote-unquote good guy, like, it just seems very pointless, because it's hurting the citizens, and, like,
yeah, but those numbers,
I don't know,
those numbers piss
yeah, I
Trump
don't
off,
know, like,
though.
what, but, like, I don't know, like, how much money he stands to gain and all of that.
Well, the point is he's far less wealthy than he's been trying to pass him off as already. We've seen the numbers where Kushner and Ivanka have made $86 million while supposedly having White House positions. This is the biggest grift ever pulled off. And I mean, Tim, we've talked about this on this show before. The founding fathers were ready for a president like this. There are tools to stop it, but the Congress has to do something, and they won't.
They need to wait until there's a Trump hotel on the beach of North Korea. Then they can go ahead and stop it.
I mean, that just tells you right there. There are reports that, you know, he found time to ask Kim Jong-un, you know, like, you want to have a couple hotels at a beach somewhere? I mean, this is the president of the United States. This is his priority.
Said that outright.
Unbelievable.
He said it in a report. That's where I got it from. He said it in a speech he was giving. He said,
I think he was bragging about it and talking about,
he was
like,
they got these beautiful beaches and they drop bombs on them. I'm like thinking that's how a hotel would be, because I think like that. I'm a genius. I'm a very stable genius.
Oh, Christ.
He didn't say that again, but I was just embellishing. But yeah, it was basically he wants to put hotels. You could put so much property over there.
Well, you want to talk about the tariffs and the possible no extension of NAFTA. I believe it's 36 out of the continental 48 states. Their number one export destination is Canada. So you want to slap these tariffs on everything, and you want to end NAFTA. All that stuff gets more expensive. Good luck keeping your market share. Then stockholders aren't receiving their quarterly dividends, so guess who pays? All the workers. Trump is killing his own economy.
It won't matter.
I mean, is that the only way the message will get across then, I guess?
Well, I don't really think he cares. That's what he's there to do.
This fool went to the G7 and said we should bring Putin in and make it the G8, and then he bitched so much he finally had to leave. He's doing. I mean, what's that all about? He has to. It's like
Well,
he has something on him or something. Putin has something on Trump or something. There's something, or is that just another dictator that he loves so much he knows he can maybe get him back in?
well, there was the G8 until 4 years ago when they all wanted to have a hissy fit and kick Putin out.
Okay,
I mean-
but why does Trump want him in so bad?
Because,
do they just
yeah,
wanna
because
add
it's somebody
more
like
money?
him.
Yeah, like I mean, Russia's very wealthy, isn't it? So, I mean,
I think the issue is he wants somebody in there like him. Because obviously the leaders of Canada, France, Italy, Japan, they're not on the same plank that Trump is on. So, I mean, obviously, like a sissy, I'm leaving early. You guys all suck. I want more friends here. I mean,
yeah, that's also like really ridiculous too. I mean, it's just I just wonder like what will happen in terms of like I mean, what will happen before kind of people just realize that this is just not a direction that's ideal to go in?
I don't think it's an issue of realizing anything. It's an issue of doing something about it. There's
Well, yeah,
nobody.
like I mean, will people doing anything? I guess.
Nothing's going to happen until after midterms. It's up to the people get a small window to remove a lot of obviously now proven lying pieces of shit. So if they don't do that, then they've given this opportunity up. Now, the people that say, doesn't matter who you elect, they're all the same. Yeah, to a certain extent, that's correct. But this is an opportunity for people who don't really fit the mold. And we've been seeing it already. A lot of people running for Congress and even some Senate nominees are not the regular cloth. Will they get changed like everybody else when they go to the DC bubble? Maybe. But all they need is a new Congress and a new majority and 2 months to get the ball rolling, and then it can't be stopped. And then we'll have another Nixon.
Yeah.
But that's the only window the American people get, the midterms.
I mean, and is that window even useful if, I guess, the mass media and stuff is normalized and I guess emboldened the right?
Well, again, I mean, I just think that, this whole problem is because people are intellectually lazy.
Have you ever noticed that when a rich white guy gets arrested for all the crimes he did, he's being treated very unfairly? But immigrant people getting their children snatched from them and locked up in cages in different states from their parents, that's just dandy.
Well, I mean, that's naked fascism. That's all that is.
Yeah, and like, I remember there was like another kind of. Someone shared some kind of screenshot from a private Trump supporter group on Facebook, and they were talking about like how the detainment and separation of children from their parents was like cruel, and they're just like, do you think this is cruel? And then all of these like supporters just commented like abhorrent things like about like how like the child should be like put down or something, and or sold or whatnot. So I mean, it's just odd to kind of see that hypocrisy, because like these people were probably like the same people at the beginning of the election saying that they were going to vote for Trump because he was making America quote unquote great again and restoring like good old fashioned values, which are supposed to be like good or founded on like propriety or something. And like they're saying this stuff, and it's like I just don't understand how people can like just function like that. Like it's just it just makes no sense to me at all.
I'll say this. I said this before on the show. I'm going to say it again. It was only 60, 70 years ago in this country that there was a whole bunch of white people having a nice picnic and barbecue, celebrating the lynching of black people, the hangings and burnings and tortures and killings. Right there with the kids, the whole family having picnics and all that. If they don't view people as people, if these people aren't human, we're human, these people aren't human, then they can do anything to them. They're savages.
Well,
I mean,
that's
and yeah, and I was just gonna say, like in Canada, the same thing is kind of happening regarding, and I mean, it also happened to like the black people who came here during, and I mean, it's Canada wasn't like this utopia that the people of America or enslaved peoples of America fled to through the Underground Railroad. Like it wasn't some like great thing. It was like people were, I mean, free to an extent, but it was still quite bad. But just nowadays, I just think of like the indigenous peoples and populations that kind of fare against all the stuff that's happened in Canada. Like you guys have probably heard of like the Colton Boushie trial and like I mean the notorious stuff where like indigenous children are likeliest to kind of be taken into foster care or just removed from homes and placed into foster care, and it's like sometimes it's just or I guess most of the time it's not even like justified. Like the social workers will like just kind of loiter around reserves or places that have high indigenous populations and like just kind of just lie in wait for children to be born so they can like take them away.
well, this is a very Canadian trait to the colonial history of Canada. All the Americans are getting upset about these camps that are being established. It's been practiced in Canada for its entire existence that, we just send a couple people around and we take them away one at a time. And we just give them away to other people. There, problem solved.
They've done that here too. They just, like we always say, they just haven't celebrated it like this. I mean, I heard, I was on the radio at work this morning, and some preacher dude was on there talking about Jeff Sessions does not represent God or the Bible, because Jeff Sessions quoted the Bible to say it's perfectly cool to take these people away because they're disobeying the government, and that's against the Bible, right? And that's what they use. That's what they use for slavery and everything else. And this preacher's like, the Bible never said that. And I said, yes, it did. That preacher need to read his Bible. That's the problem.
No, it's not whether it said it or not. It's the context. I mean, the same passage of Scripture that Sessions used to justify rounding up kids is the same passage that was used to justify slavery. So, I mean, I was pretty quick to make the comparison on Twitter. There's another cabal. There's another cabal in the world that perverts religion for their political ideology, and they're called ISIL, Daesh. And that's what the U.S. government is doing now.
And the irony, too, is that they claim that they're against Daesh and that they're going to go there and help people and save them from Daesh. And it's like, you're doing the exact same thing. Like, what? Get off your high horse.
No, it's a different deity. One of them's real, one of them's not. God loves America. Did you read the Bible? It's all through there. All he talks about is guns in America and the beautiful flag and freedom and liberty and justice for all and all that good shit.
That reminds me of that comic that went viral amongst like conservatives and everybody, like of picture of that cop Darren Wilson with like angel's wings, and he's holding a Bible and a gun, and he's like shooting like innocent black people, or I don't know if the comic intended for them to be seen as innocent, but essentially he's just like flying over black people and shooting them, and all of these people like shared it, and they're just like, Darren Wilson's a good cop, we should like support him. And it's just ridiculous. It's funny, but it's also sad to just kind of know that like this stuff is actually like affecting like life as we know it, and like as a result of like this ignorance, we and like just general dissenters like will just fare against all of these people or populations and institutions that like just demoralize and dehumanize us, and like the odds of, I guess, attaining happiness or stability or security are just like slim, or if there are any odds.
That's not where the money is. That's why.
I told
Yeah.
someone the other day, I don't know why they're poor. All they had to do was just inherit $200 million like Trump did.
Exactly.
Sheesh. Is it really that hard?
Exactly. And because of that birthright, that's what makes him so special. Just ask him. Just like royal families.
It's
Because-
it's like very ironic too, because I'm not sure if you guys followed all of the, I guess, the reporting that everything kind of like all that stuff during the election. Like a lot of people uncovered that like even though he was wealthy and, you know, I guess growing in wealth, particularly during the 80s and yeah, like the 80s to the early 90s, they like he was a huge embarrassment. Like a lot of people just didn't like him and like snubbed him, and I guess like he always insisted upon showing up to places even though he knew he was not wanted or fit to be in those places. Like I don't know if it was just the blue bloods or whatever, but
At the White House?
yeah. But like yeah, and that was the underlying like I guess lesson of the article. They were saying that like the reason he has decided to pursue like being president is because he essentially just wanted to stick it to all of these like aristocrats who snubbed him prior, or he was just essentially nursing this inferiority complex caused by all of these other rich people who just kind of snubbed him. Like and I mean, it's the thing that made him, I guess, remarkable in the article is that his family that came before him, they were like developers and all that stuff, but they didn't expand into certain areas because they knew they weren't wanted or welcome there. But Trump was there, and he's just like, we got to go across the river or whatever. And apparently, like, but his family's just like, no, like, that's, like, we're not wanted there. This is, like, we're not, like, there's a boundary, and we can't cross that, like, no matter how much money we get. And it never registered, and he just kept going to all these places, and he kept getting snubbed, and he kept getting sunned by people, and I guess it just kind of added up over the years.
He failed 6 businesses, too.
Just
Yeah.
like Nixon. That's the exact mindset Nixon had. Everybody hates me. Nobody thinks I'm worthy. Oh, I'm going to show everybody. Same exact mindset.
I mean, and everyone turned out to be right as well, because, like, both of them were terrible. Like, they were just colossal fails, regardless of how they're, like, kind of canonized in the history of America and romanticized. They were just terrible. So
Well-
yeah.
At least Richard Nixon had decades of experience in government. He understood how it worked. He used it incorrectly and illegally. Fair enough, but at least he knew how shit worked. The Nixon government actually did pass some laws, actually did get some stuff done. This one? Pfft, forget it.
Hey, do you think one day in the future that Nixon doing the little quote saying "I'm not a crook" will be replaced with Donald Trump doing his little white supremacist okay signal saying "no collusion"?
I mean, that sounds like something that's bound to catch on. And also, I was wondering if both of you kind of thought that, like, I guess the masses were culpable to an extent in, like, how things are going. Because I know that, like, the people, or I guess the 1%, wield a lot of the power in terms of, like, what happens and how the world turns. But I was also wondering, like, what your kind of input is in terms of, like, I guess masses. Like, is there some accountability that needs to kind of be taken?
They need in this country. They need to get rid of the 2-party system, in my opinion. I mean, I'm a no-party kind of person, but even if they had more choices and more kind of thing, and gave them equal opportunity, like Democrats, Republicans, and five or six other parties, maybe more, all running, all getting the equal amount of media time, all being only allowed to have an equal amount of money, stuff like that. Make it even. Even it out. You got these two giant parties that just getting all this corporate money, and they owe. I mean, it's bribery. We're taking your money, and now what do we got to do for that money? And it's no problem because fuck the people. We're here for you. That's what they tell the corporations. They don't tell them personally. They show it to them, obviously, because that's all I see. I don't see them doing shit for me.
I mean, even if we had, or I mean, America had all like an equal distribution of money and airtime between multiple parties as opposed to the two parties, do you think people would make a choice that's in their best interests, or like just kind of a choice based on, like, I guess, shock value or something?
No, based on feels. That's what's wrong.
But at least they'd have more options, and there would be less votes going to just too big. I mean, I'm sure at first if they did it, there would be, everyone would still be, oh, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I have to vote my guys. But they're both so crooked, they're both so racist, they're both so corrupt. I mean, here's the thing. Trump is just like the ultimate shitty person. You know what I mean? He's got the worst qualities of all the he's dumber than Bush. He's a
piece of shit.
He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go through all the different presidents since Reagan. He's racist. He's more racist than Reagan. Dumber than Bush. Big Bush. I don't know.
I mean, he was like the thing that happened that I don't think many people were expecting to happen. Like, I mean, it reminds me of the whole Brexit thing. Like, people voted for it, and then when it actually like went through, the news and everything were going around just interviewing people, and they're just like, wow, I never thought it would actually happen. But
How many of those people actually voted? That's what's wrong.
Yeah, but
oh no, the irony of the interviews is that they interviewed people who voted for Brexit, but then they said that like they voted for Brexit, but they thought they were just like surprised that it happened, and then regretted voting for Brexit like I think a couple days after. So that was, I guess, the irony of the story. So that was what I was just thinking in terms of like people, because like you can give people all of the choices all in their best interests, and you can lay it out, you can justify why it's in their best interests, and it will be like no cost to them to simply vote in their best interest, but they wouldn't. So I'm just like, yeah.
They think that is their best interest. Because if you think about Brexit and Trump are really similar. It's these white people saying immigrants are coming in, they're taking over our white land, and oh my God, we have to stop it. So they go full on fascist, racist, authoritarian because they don't want these dark people taking their place. They were marching through the streets saying, you will not replace us. And
then when those minorities are snuffed out, and then suddenly they're the people at the bottom of the chain now, because like the elites are up at the top.
Yeah, they'll give them another religion. Yeah. They'll say, oh, the Scientologists, let's do a Holocaust against them or something. I don't know. There's just something like that. They'll select a group of white people and attack them.
And then suddenly they'll realize that it's wrong. Like, it wasn't wrong when they were attacking the minorities and people, but it's wrong if they're the ones being victimized, like, for real this time. So,
like Glenn always says, not in my backyard.
Yeah. I mean, with the way things are going, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like if Donald Trump, like, actually ended up being president for a second term, or like, if they elected another celebrity who, like, didn't really know about politics, but was like, I guess, appealing to the masses. Like, I guess an example just off the top of my head, like if it was like, I guess, Cardi B or Oprah or somebody like that, like,
I'm pretty sure Oprah would win.
Like, I mean, yeah, like there's nothing wrong with them, I guess, but like it's not in the best interests of the people, but like they'd vote for it anyway. But it's it's like, oh, it's just frustrating because, like,
Well, that's the problem with the U.S. and I believe Canada too, if I'm correct, is that I know Glenn's going to disagree, but no matter who I vote for, if I don't vote for one of the two parties, then my vote doesn't matter. And no matter which one of those people I vote for, there's going to be a fascist piece of shit, and I won't want to support that. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I mean, I
It's just
think Canada might be feeling that too, just because Doug Ford won that recent election in Ontario. So people are now saying that, like, it'll be like a domino effect where, like, everybody else in Canada will now be inclined to vote similarly.
No, that's not the whole picture. I've said this before on this show. You know it, Tim. Doug Ford got 40% of 58% of eligible voters. That's how you fuck up your country. You don't vote. If we had 70 to 80% turnout in all the Western countries, we would not be where we are. When you can't be bothered to cast a ballot, that means you support whatever happens. Silence is acceptance.
well,
Is the system fucked? Yes, but it's been allowed to get fucked because nobody cares. The bottom line is there's only one time in a politician's life that they need their constituents, and that's on election day. And if 4 out of 5 eligible constituents turned up, we wouldn't be seeing the behavior we see now. Because it doesn't matter how much money they can make on the side or in the future. If they can't win that election, it's all gone.
yeah, but one of them's going to win either way. If I go write none of the above, and I get 2 million people across the United States to all write none of the above, one of those two evil motherfuckers still going to win. And you can say, oh yeah, one's more evil, but fuck them both. I don't want either one of them.
What if you had 50 million that wrote none of the above?
One of them would still win.
But
All they
what
need is one
legitimacy
vote.
would they have? What legitimacy would they have?
What legitimacy does Trump really have? He's got less than a third of the country even voted for him, dude.
But he won the Electoral College.
Yeah, and how does that work? Do they just, like, do whatever they want because of, like,
Because a population in different states, they get more votes. It's a bunch of crap. It's not because we don't have one vote, one person. Your vote really doesn't even count. Like it's I don't even know. I'm not even trying to argue with you, Glenn. I know what you're saying, and I agree. I'm just saying.
I was just going to say that one vote in a presidential election in Wyoming carries as much weight as 9 votes for president in LA County. That's how well the Electoral College works.
Yeah.
yeah.
And Canada's not much different with first past the post.
They made it sound like they made it sound like people turned up to vote, and a lot of people voted, or a lot of millennials voted for the NDP, but Doug Ford ended up winning, and now people are just like saying that this is going to incline other places to kind of assume a similar kind of political dominance or whatever, and then we might end up with a conservative prime minister come next election. But I mean, that's just people getting, I guess, maybe too ahead of themselves. But yeah, I was surprised that Doug Ford won. Like, he just seems so inept, and like, considering the family history, like, I didn't understand why so many people supported him just in light of, I guess, reality.
Well, again, you say so many people supported him. I say, again, almost half the people didn't bother to vote.
I mean, yes, but like, I just mean like the numbers of, like, the amount of people who supported him. Like, I don't know, like, why that,
40% of 58% is not a lot of people. It's only a lot of people when people don't fucking vote.
Well, no, like, my point is, like, I mean, I guess I should probably say that I don't know how, like, anyone can support him just in light. Like, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer to me, because when you look at Doug Ford and his actions and his answers and what he hopes to, I guess, implement. And then you look at like the context he comes from. It just seems like, why would you support that? Like it just seems ridiculous to me.
Because it's based on feels.
Hey, Nolan's in the chat. Nolan Hack, for people who don't know who Nolan is. He said he had a question. Oh, hang on, Tim. Oh, he said, remember, Trump has a approval rating of over 40. He's pretty legitimate as far as America goes. And question for Fallen. Oprah would definitely have a shot at the White House, but do you really think Cardi B would even have a chance? That's what I said. I said Oprah would win.
I mean, it just doesn't surprise me anymore. Like, Cardi B has beaten a lot of musical records, and she has so much favor with a large base, and like, she's like a testament to like how payola kind of works, and how like just throwing a lot of money at something that is a gimmick can be lucrative for everyone who invests, because people just buy into it, and like her popularity isn't waning. And yeah, like I
think he's just saying, like, I mean, there's a lot of people that, like, Snoop Dogg ran for president, he wouldn't win. It would be hilarious, and I might even go out and vote, but he wouldn't win.
I mean, I guess I don't have enough faith in humanity, because like I could see her actually winning, and I can see people like actually voting for her, and like I don't know if the electoral college would be all over that, but yeah.
I just don't know if she'd win. But Glenn, we've been on a tangent, haven't we?
Just a bit.
I mean, we did talk about Trump.
Yeah, what was the next thing? Was it Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
And she's leaving, apparently, or stepping down.
Yeah, her and the I can't think of his name. Her assistant or her next.
Just another one.
Yeah, two of them are leaving.
Was there a reason why she's leaving, or?
Because her kids are in kindergarten and they're learning to be filthy fucking liars, and she doesn't like that.
I see.
No, I don't know. She actually tweeted something. I could try to look it up, but it basically was her not saying she wasn't leaving, but saying like the CBS knows something I don't know about my future, and I've never commented on this. But I believe they tried to call her friends and people that know her and work with her are the ones that told them this, and she hasn't denied it. She just didn't verify it or confirm it either.
Well, what's the difference? Sarah Huckabee Goebbels goes away. The new one comes in. There's nothing that's going to change.
Don't you think that knocks their credit? But now he's gone through 3 press secretaries, Spicer.
I mean, I don't think it makes much of a difference either. Like, nothing is changing unless people do something, and that's why I kind of feel really numb to a lot.
Well, Congress has to do something. I feel sad,
but yeah.
The people are too weak and scared. Congress has to do something. Talk about shutting down streets. They're like, oh, but this and that and the other. Oh, no. You know,
I mean, like, reason. Again, like, it's up to people to do something, but, like, this is another reason why I see a lot of news stories and feel kind of, like, not indifferent, but just kind of numb, because, like, you see this stuff, and, like, it's happened ever since Trump has gone into office. It's just outrageous headline after outrageous headline, just showing him as, like, a huge hypocrite and hugely unfit to, like, be president, or just, I guess, be an effigy of, like, the United States. But, like, it's just headline after headline, and you just read it, and you're not even, like, phased anymore. You just read it, and you just think of, like the bar just sinks lower and lower, and, like, no one is doing anything, and you just read it, and it's like there's no point in getting upset because no one is doing anything. Like, it's kind of reminds me of, like, world events, like the whole, like, you were talking about genocide earlier. I'm thinking of the Rwanda genocide, where for, I guess, over 100 days, the genocide happened, and the world just literally did nothing. They just kind of sat there and watched. And I, like, feel, I'm not comparing, like, present-day times to that or anything. I just feel like that is kind of metaphorical in terms of, like, what is happening now. Like, the world is watching and doing nothing, and like America is watching and doing nothing while things just get progressively worse.
America's watching idle. That's what the problem is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the bottom line. If people don't give a fuck, there will be those around with the means and the time to take advantage. And it's not something that you can reverse at any point on the ride. I mean, you can read, I'm not big on Godwin's Law. I don't seek to do it. But this is a definite model for what's happening in the United States now. And you don't have to look at the evil propagandists like Joseph Goebbels. You read Edward Bernays, and he says the same damn thing. You just pick your narrative, you stick to it, and you saturate your audience. It will become accepted. Period. That's human nature.
You know what
It's also like quite shocking too, because like and this is also why I feel kind of nihilistic and kind of skeptical of this whole quote unquote solidarity initiative that people claim. But like, people who are actually about that life and who are actually trying to do something, they end up like getting brutalized, or like they end up impoverished and like dismissed and discarded when they're out there and putting in the work. And as a result of their labor, something could change, and then people who idled by will reap the benefits of that. And I don't like whether they give recognition to those who did the labor is totally optional, but the fact that like the people who are doing the labor and actually like doing something are like, the fact that they get overlooked and the masses kind of flock to celebrities or talking heads and throwing their money and fattening the wallets of these people, while like the people actually involved, it's just one of those other things too, like that you kind of think about in terms of like, since people like don't give a fuck, like why would I give a fuck about like the people then? I mean, I don't know if it's like a paradox or something, but it just seems odd to me. Like, you see people like giving up their whole lives or being prosecuted for like taking a stand for what's right, and the community that they strive to aid and everything doesn't have their back.
I think we solved a problem. What you do is you say if they have to have Democrats and Republicans, then we just have an election like regular, and whoever loses becomes a vice president, whoever wins becomes a president. That way we have a Democrat and Republican both in the White House, and they can fight that shit out all the time, or they'll both sell out to the same corporations and act the same, and then people could see how they really are. But one way or another...
Well, then you're making a one-party state.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that part. I didn't think it all the way through. It like something just popped in my head 30 seconds ago. Sounded awesome.
I mean, that's no different than the People's Republic of China, where there are different little groups of the Communist Party, but they're all the Communist Party. So, I mean, if you're guaranteeing one spot in the White House for each party, no, I don't think that's really going to help too much.
But I mean, yeah, it just seems like if one of them has a house and the White House is basically nobody can do anything. If both of them are mixed in somehow, then they're fighting it out. So I guess that's the way to keep it.
You said fighting it out, and then I just immediately thought of the Purge.
Yeah.
Well, and the irony is, like, if there was a purge, that wouldn't solve the problem, because people would just step in and assume the same roles.
That's not always possible. I mean, look at the way the government handles the opposition, the grassroots opposition. They don't go after the people handing out flyers. They go after Bobby Sands. They go after the people at the top.
Yeah.
So if you get rid of the right people, yeah, shit can drop dead.
Yeah.
Good thing we're talking about Sarah Huckabee Sanders for this one, eh?
I mean, yeah, we basically said she's gone, so what? Someone else will come in and lie, and the idiots will still believe it, right? And,
I mean, I don't think anyone ever believed Sarah. I just think that they couldn't call her out because she would have had them thrown out, or she just would have.
They could have called her out, and they could have just said, "Then throw my ass out." And then
Yep.
the next one could have called her out, and until they have no press in there, and who cares? Now no one's going to listen to her lies.
Exactly.
She could print
Yeah.
that shit and send it to the press as a press release.
Exactly, and that's the whole point. Everybody is instructed by their management to not jeopardize your access. Why? Because this circus is making us money.
Yeah.
It all comes
And
down
again,
to
like,
money.
I just wonder again, like, I mean, people are totally capable of, like, acting in their own interests or, like, the interests of fellow people, which is
They are?
also in their interest. Well, I mean, they can, but so that's why I'm always, like, flabbergasted, or just I feel, or I grow more nihilistic as time goes on, as I see people just kind of abiding this, as opposed to just like doing something, because it just seems ridiculous. Like, if an individual does something, it's not futile, but it would be, like, less effective if a group did something. And, like, it's like nobody seems willing to kind of come together or do something collectively, but an individual does it, and then they're penalized or reprimanded or whatever. And the masses just kind of look on. And I don't know, like, if that'll ever change, but yeah, like, it's just very hard to think about.
Yeah, most people are caught up in whatever they're doing, and they're happy
I mean,
with their
Glenn,
life.
you were talking about, like, how, like, feels and everything comes into it, but I just, like, wonder, like, were feels always, like, a huge factor, or have they, like, become more significant in the age of social media and
Well,
fandom?
No, I
Less
think
education too.
social media is just a gift to this movement. I mean, I've said this before on this show too. I mean, the only difference in method is the method of delivery. You know, people say, what if the 1930s had this kind of technology? It's the same general message. And look what they were able to accomplish then. So, you know, I mean, that's why I think people better be paying attention right now, because the parallels are clear. They are directly connectable to regimes out of human history in the last 150 years. You don't even have to go back to when it was feudal or basically monarchies fighting each other. I mean, you think people are partisan now? Take a look at the Crusades. I mean, it's never going to go away. It involves us. And obviously, this is what we do.
I think it's a learned behavior. I don't know. It could be based on something.
Well,
People just seem to be compelled to icononize, like, mediocrity, or just, I mean,
that's because for the most part, they are mediocre. That's what's driving all this opinion now. Everything that's in the dark recesses of people's minds is being given airtime, is being legitimized. I mean, you know, you wonder what, you know, just for a comparison, you wonder why the murder rate is so low in a place like Saudi Arabia. You wonder why the theft rate is so low in a place like Saudi Arabia. Because there are consequences. You steal, they cut off your hand. You kill somebody, they cut off your head. Everybody knows it. So, you know, you're thinking about maybe stealing, yeah, maybe not. But in the West, it's being legitimized to do inhumane and antisocial behavior every day. So it seems okay.
I mean, do you also think that that social media access to children affects this as well, in terms of like how the children who kind of see this kind of circus and play into it kind of grow up striving to perpetuate it or perhaps lead one of their own?
Well, what I've been seeing in Canada is basically young children. Children up to about the age of 10 still know right from wrong. And when you ask them random questions about, like, what should the government do with a pile of money or stuff like that, little kids will most of the time say, well, they should fix our school, we should have a better hospital, stuff like that. But then once puberty starts and peer pressure starts, this is where political indoctrination starts to take over instead of just humanistic thought. And, a market is a market. A demographic is a demographic. In this day and age, there's money to be made by creating the opinions that somebody wants. And unfortunately, I just think that's the way the entire society is running now. It's about who can make what happen for how much.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I was just thinking in terms of like when we were talking about celebrities and who might win an election or whatnot. But I'm just thinking back now to like that whole incident with Logan Paul, where he famously did that kind of terrible video in Japan's suicide forest. And he was like, he faced dual backlash for it, because not only was there that video and it was just unacceptable, but he was being a total dick otherwise. In the midst of that, I saw all of these children on social media who were like 12 and under, who were essentially like trying to argue on his behalf against the backlash. They were saying like it wasn't a big deal. They were saying like he was awesome regardless. And then I started to see all these other sentiments of people posting selfies with him, like relatively young people who were like, again, in that same age range, talking about how like he was a great person and how like his actions didn't matter and all of that. So I was just thinking in terms of kids idolizing these figures, because like if you do ask a child about like the whole question in the context of money and what they should spend it on, that's like, I'm sure, like, I do agree that they generally are inclined to talk about like investing in the good of like society. But would the same kind of apply if you put like a celebrity figure or like, I don't know, like someone they iconize or kind of put on a pedestal in the scenario? Because I was just wondering if there's a way to kind of divert that association, because when you talk about feels, people start to impose their feels on these figures, which I guess clouds their judgment.
Well, I think something about what you just said. I mean, I'm old enough. I remember when in the 70s, late 70s, the first show to start the whole ball rolling was something called Talent Search. That's all it was called. Yeah. And then within a few years, it was called Star Search. And it's just keep progressing and progressing. It's not called American Unknown Singers. It's called American Idol. Everything has been elevated, and that is to paint a picture of what greatness can be bestowed upon anyone. But that's total bullshit in reality. But create the image as high up on the mountain as you possibly can. And research shows that the more unlikely and unreachable you make something, the more people who are going to wish for it, which doesn't make any sense. But I mean, it's not America's Next Unknown Star. It's American Idol. It's not like you're going to get known for a while and maybe make an album or two. You're going to be Bieber. You're going to be Britney Spears. That's what they're selling. And when people accept that sort of non-logic, even in their dreams, what are they willing to accept in everyday things?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, that kind of really distorts reality. I mean, I guess it would distort reality to, like, the masses, too, which is why you see so many phenomena happening, and you're like, how could this be happening? And then when you think of it like that, it makes sense on why it's happening. It doesn't seem logical, but yet it's happening.
And again, I say that's because people simply allow it by incorrect involvement or uninformed involvement, but still the mass majority just don't give a fuck about it. And they let it go on. It's easier.
Yeah, I wish I'm gonna have to go back now and listen to what you said about feels, because like this pretty much sounds intriguing. Like, it sounds like pretty much what I say as well, but every time you do talk, like, not you, but like every time anyone kind of talks about feels, they're labeled as like being dismissive or tough or, I guess, invalidating someone's feelings. So it's interesting how, like, people choose to be silent or just enable stuff as opposed to say, like, no, we have to do something.
But your feelings are for feeling things. I mean, you don't. When you go to get to do a business deal or a loan at the bank, do you go based on feelings, like, oh, I'm going to go to this place, or do you go based on interest rates and the best deals?
Exactly.
You know, and voting is like that. When you
Should be.
I mean, they argue that people go based on feelings. That's why people make all those commercials, and they want to make themselves seem like they're your friends and everything. But like that's not how things work, and yet people treat it as though that is how things work. They treat it as if
it wasn't always that way. When's the last time you saw a new car commercial where they had the mileage ratings on the commercial? Now in a car commercial, you're lucky if you even see the goddamn car. They sell you a dream, and then they say you have to have our car.
Yeah,
logic has been removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's how most commercials are. Like, they put all of these, like, stories into it, and you're just like, oh, and then at the end of the commercial, they just show the product, and it's like,
yeah,
now you should buy this brand. And it's like, what did the commercial have to do with this?
There's a commercial I see every day on YouTube, and I don't know what it's for. I don't care what it's for, because if I want to know what it's for, I watch the whole commercial, but as soon as it's a skip ad, I'm skipping that ad. It's some dude with really nice hair and some lady with really blowing in the wind hair, and they're white and they're running.
A Chad and a Stacy.
Yeah, and they're running around looking like they're in love, and as soon as they look each other in the eye, it's usually on press the skip ad and it's gone. So I have no idea what it's for. They should put the logo of what the hell the commercial's for in the corner for people like me that don't give a shit.
I mean, and they could also just kind of optimize getting the message across. Like, instead of giving these drawn-out narratives, which are pretty pretentious, and, like, allege that there's some kind of sentiment being imparted between the product and the consumer, just get to the product and talk about, like, why it's an awesome product. But, like, to make an awesome product would cost more money than just making a shitty product and throwing all the money to advertise it and have people buy into the advertisement and then just remake your investment.
In the 80s, it was a big deal when Ford and General Motors devoted more money to advertising and marketing than research and development. When they finally hit that, went from 47 to 51 type thing. When that happened, that was a big deal. Now, it's probably more like 80-20 or 85-15, and nobody gives a shit.
Yep.
You know, like when I see a car commercial, I don't care about its connectivity. I don't care about what the trim looks like. I want to know how long it's going to last.
Like the family in the car.
I mean, I'm buying a car. How long is this piece of shit going to last? I don't care if I can Bluetooth in it. It's a car. It's not a fucking phone.
Well, but there is that one car that keeps the family safe in the videos, and like we all could have been dead, but thank Jesus for this car, because it stopped for us.
And that car is the same standards of safety as every other car out there, minimum.
No, it stopped for them automatically. They didn't see the little people running out in the street. Car saw them. Because they were laughing and talking like a good family does when they drive down the road.
And
it's like Apple's latest commercial too. Like the guy goes off to college, and his laptop is on his desk, and then he moves into his dorm, and then he opens his MacBook and is like FaceTiming or whatever with his family on the other end, and then Apple's just like, "We're with you every step of the way," and I'm just like, what does this have to do?
That's scary.
With like. I'm just there, and I'm like, what does this have to do with, like, how good your MacBook is? Like, why? I just couldn't. And you, again,
Feels.
like, yeah, and again, like, I don't know if people, and I made a thread about this, and a lot of people called me, like, a hater and bitter, and they always, this is like the mantra of people in fields. They always screech, let people enjoy things. And, yeah, like, I was talking about, like, I'm just unable to relate to people who have an immense amount of privilege, including wealth or whatever, and like this is why like I feel kind of indifferent regarding representation in media, because like I can't relate to the personalities or narratives being pushed by the mainstream that are alleged to be representation and for the betterment of the consumers
You
who
are
are apparently.
You are not the targeted demographic of that ad.
I mean, I'm supposed to be like they show. It's like Kamala Harris. She's like black and in Congress and whatnot. And she spearheaded SESTA FOSTA, and she's done all kinds of crappy stuff, but since she's a black woman, I'm supposed to feel good because I'm supposed to see representation.
Bingo.
But I don't. Yeah, but apparently I'm just wrong because I can't connect with it.
Well, that's how deep the analytical dissection has come. I mean, that's another big thing. The ability exists now. The accuracy of it, that's up to the individual to decide. But say you're a business or a think tank or an NGO or anything else, but you can call up firms and say, I want this one question answered. And they can do it. That never used to exist before. And, the more money that's in the picture, the more little quirks and subsets they're going to come up with. This is a self-sustaining monster. As long as people keep playing and keep clicking and keep pressing buttons, none of this is going to slow down. But this is what people have been trained to do. So, all's well.
I mean, this is also why Trudeau is seen as such an amazing person or emblematic of quote-unquote Canadian values.
Well,
I don't really see that. I don't think he's the bane of existence or as bad as Donald Trump, but I don't understand why people love him so much.
Because he's not Stephen Harper, number one.
I mean, yeah, that too, but he's not this second coming to Canada. Just because he marches in some pride parades and takes some good photo ops and talks about like how he's committed to reconciliation or whatever, like I just don't see it. Like I don't know why people are like intent to gas him up as like this one of a kind prime minister or like leader who's like exemplary and awesome and perhaps like Jesus Christ. Like I don't get it.
Because he fits the mold that's been created that sells. That's it. That's what's changed. Leaders don't come along and change perspective. Perspective now drives leaders. They will find somebody who fits their role. Why do you think Doug Ford even became leader of the PCs? Look at him, look at Trump. No connection? Come on.
Yeah, and I remember when Trump won, the Conservative Party, and I think Kelly Leach was on that circuit then. She sent out like, or I guess her office sent out like these congratulatory messages to PC subscribers or whatever. They were talking about how they were great, that they were happy Donald Trump won, and how like perhaps it will like set some kind of precedent or positive correlation to Canadian politics in the future.
Well, that's a backhand admission that our analytical subversion works. Stay tuned; it will be here.
Yeah, like, and I remember that, like, and people were talking about like how it was in bad taste because it just happened like right after. But yeah, Kelly Leach is also just really horrible. But it seemed, I thought that like when it comes to that kind of thing, people would be inclined to be tactful and like not kind of show the cards that they're holding or like any card they're holding, but they just kind of plainly announce that they're happy and that they think this is going to be awesome and set a precedent for Canada.
Well, I think that just proves that the entire measuring stick has changed. If this was even in the early 80s, people would have said, there's no logic in that. And that would have been the first stick, the first measuring stick. But it's not anymore. The first measuring stick is feels. Because there's no logic in anything Trump stands for a nation. There is no logic. What he's done, what he says he wants to do, the way he does it, there is no logic there. It's all based on emotion. All of it. Even the way he behaves, all of it plays in. Think about in the days of, think about the first Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau. The way he acted, he would fit in today. No problem. He could probably win today with that personality. But back then, that was radical. And he was the first one, I think, in Canada to really tap into feels. And he wasn't afraid to do it. And he got in, he was elected, 3 times? So, people are people. I just, I don't mean to be a wet blanket, but we're the only game in town, so we insist that we rule the earth. Well,
yeah, people need to start training their kids better so we don't have future people that are like these fucked up people.
I mean, and that's even looking kind of dismal. It's
impossible.
With the whole state of, especially when you look at like all the, particularly like white women who kind of flood threads, and because like remember, I think, what was it, 63%? I don't remember the exact percentage, but a huge substantial percentage of white women voted for Trump, and it just kind of made me think about like the insidiousness of white feminism as like a brand, and how it was like assumed by like all of these celebrities, even non-white celebrities,
I don't think any feminists voted for Trump, though.
No, I mean, everything is a vehicle now. That's the problem. And it's been proven
No,
that vehicles can be taken over. But, I just want to say again, yes, there was a over 50% white women voted for Trump. I'd like to see that number, and I'd like to know how many white women who were eligible to vote didn't vote.
yeah, but
I
I
bet
think.
you the ones who didn't vote are twice as many.
Oh yeah, I mean, because they're only a third of the people voted for Trump. But I'm just saying, if a woman voted for Trump and called herself a feminist, she's full of shit. That's all I was
I
trying to make that
mean,
point.
there have been a number of feminist or former feminist, I guess, social media celebrities who have since been red pilled and like are now amenable to like MRAs and all of this other stuff. Like I remember, like, there were like stories that used to go viral all the time about like these white women who declared themselves as feminists or and liberals as well and Democrats, but they had a boyfriend who was like an ardent Trump supporter and or just some kind of alt-right kind of deplorable figure, and they talked about how they essentially kind of negotiated their complacency to like their partner's bigotry, and they were talking about how like they had interesting conversations. And so yeah, it makes me, I don't know if this is just some kind of penchant people have to kind of engage with the worst, but it's just interesting to kind of watch unfold. Like they go and fraternize directly with someone who is against their best interest, and it goes, I guess it goes back to feels again, because like it's not logical, and it's like and stuff like that is not even remotely logical. Like where does the attraction come from? Like why is the conversation like interesting? Like why is debating the humanity or validity of like a subject seen as like a legitimate intellectual or argumentative exercise? Like it
If
yeah.
you're dating, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, whoever you're dating, if they're a racist, you pretty much are a racist. Why else would you be married to or dating someone who is a racist? That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
That's a logical conclusion, but the compromise is based on feels.
I
And
guess
Canada
that's the
is
theme
not
of today's
immune to
show. Feels. I wish I had Tones feels good to play on the way out.
Well, I mean, I can only say from my own experience. I've had to make a lot of hard decisions in my life, and I base them on logic, and they hurt, but I still did them. Would it have been easier to go based on my feels, and I wouldn't have had to really change much? Yeah, until one day down the road, I mean, there's no free lunch. Why do people conduct their lives like the free lunch is around the corner? It ain't there.
But it should be.
A lot of things should be, Tim.
And then if you did operate on your field, like down the road, it would blow up on your face, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the old adage that came out of Central Eastern Europe last century. When they came for Group X, I didn't do anything. I wasn't one of them. When they came for Group Y, I didn't do anything. I wasn't one of them. When they came for me, there was nobody left. That's where you get sooner or later with this.
Yeah, we're getting there now. When they came for the Latinos or immigrants, we're on square one. We got 2 or 3 more to go.
Well, I just, I can't believe
before they hunting down the poor white people.
I just can't believe it. I never thought I would see in the United States an organization that is basically Einsatzgruppen 2.0. And that's exactly what ICE is doing. They're behaving just like Einsatzgruppen did for the Nazis.
Yep, fuck ICE. So yeah, I guess we're gonna wrap this show up since we started late and all that. Anything you guys want to bring up before we take off?
Nope.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, you're always
chatting
welcome
it.
on here. Not
Yeah,
just
like I
not
have
just
to
Nolan
check
shows.
out. Yeah, like I have to check out more Glenn's content too, because fellow Canadian. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
like
the view
we're.
up here, that's Glenn's radio show.
Oh,
Yeah, it,
is it also live?
yeah, it's every
yes.
Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's a
Okay.
really good show. The view up here, it's at Canadian Glenn for everybody listening, and the view up here is the show. What's happening
And
on the
Glenn
view
is
up?
with one N.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Canadian and then Glenn. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. There's two N's in the whole name. Hey Glenn.
Oh boy.
Hey Glenn. What's happening on the view up here next week? Just before we go, a brief synopsis.
Well, of course, as we mentioned a long time ago, there is an issue of the Canadian federal government buying a bogus pipeline and the company that runs it. My guest will be Robin Allen, who is an independent economist, an expert witness in National Energy Board hearings. She withdrew from the Trans Mountain process in 2014 because she said it was crooked then. She's done more work about how Canadians are going to get left on the hook for an asset that may cost a total of $20 billion and will have no customers. So we're going to talk about that.
Wasn't there also like a spill as well?
Oh, there's always spills, but yeah, the last spill, the government agency that's responsible for informing people of the spills underestimated the size of the spill by a factor of 380.
Uh.
Yeah.
But don't worry, oil's your friend.
So view up here Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And the New People's Manifesto will be out next week for both radio and video. And it's about the police, like I said before. The first few of them are all about the police. You can probably figure out if it's going to be nice about the police or not. So yeah, thank you guys for being on here, and thank everyone for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Okay.